All right, good evening, everybody. Good to see you out here tonight. Just glad you're here for our Bible study Wednesday night. Is it good to be in church in the middle of the week? Because I know it's hard to wait a whole 7 days from Sunday to Sunday. So we break it up, give it a couple days rest, back to church, a couple more days. So I like that. Anyhow, I always look forward to Wednesday night. Bible study, prayer time. It's always a special time in the middle of the week. Anyhow, we're glad that you're here. We want to welcome those who are watching on our Facebook page. We hope the service will be a blessing to everybody, whether you're here or whether you're watching it at home or wherever you are. And I know some folks watch later, sometimes days later. They're they catch up. Oh yeah, I got to go back and watch Wednesday night service. And so that's a blessing because really we have no excuse not to be at church or see all the services now. Even when you're sick, you lay in bed, you're sick, you can watch it. You have to work, come home, watch it. So that's a blessing. And so I don't hear any more excuses, okay? So everybody can be at church. All right, Brother John's going to come, and we are going to sing a song tonight. Let's everybody stand, please.
All right, thank you for standing. We're going to be looking at the sweet by and by. It's a hope that we have. One day is not only heaven, but we get to see the King of Heaven, Jesus Christ, in the sweet by and by. There's a land that is fairer than day, and by faith we can see it afar, for the Father waits over the way, to prepare us a dwelling place there, in the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore, in the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore, we shall sing on that beautiful shore, the melodious song of the blessed, and our spirits shall sorrow no more. Not a sigh for the blessing of rest, in the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore, in the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore, to our bountiful Father above, we will offer our tribute of praise, for the glorious gift of His love, and the blessings that hallow our days, in the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore, in the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore. Thank you. You may be seated.
Well, in the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore. Isn't that a great song? Alrighty. Well, it's time for the offering. All right? There's a box back there. Go ahead and put your money in. Don't everybody rush back at one time. Anyhow, kind of reminds me, I don't know what it reminds me of. But anyhow, what is it that they just have boxes on the walls somewhere for offerings? I don't know. Maybe I'm delirious. But anyhow, I was going to say a previous church I went to, but they passed the plates. So I'm not sure. Anyhow, there's the offering box every week. And we want to thank those who give. Our Wednesdays, normally we would give to a missionary. And we haven't been able to do that in a while because, to be honest, for a long time, nobody was here on Wednesday. So we kind of got out of the habit. But we'd like to start that back up again, looking for one of our missionaries that has a need. And go ahead and be a blessing to them with a little extra during this time. Alrighty, just a few announcements. Next Sunday, or this coming Sunday, we are going to open up our junior church again. So we've not had junior church since we shut down in March, and the kids have been with the parents in the gymnasium, and we appreciate the parents who brought their kids, but we know it's a challenge because our church services are geared towards adults and not towards the kids, so this will give the kids an opportunity to have their own program. So those who are planning on bringing their kids on Sunday, you'll just bring them into the gym to start with, and then we'll dismiss them after a song or two and let them come, and they'll be having a couple different classes for their junior church. Alrighty, so that's we're looking forward to that. In 2 weeks, on September 26th, we're going to have a baptismal service. So if we have at least one or two people that were interested, one for sure, another person probably. And so if you know of, if you're in our church, you've been saved, and you never have been baptized, and it's time to do that, let me know, and we'll talk to you about that, give you information on that. That'll be September 26th. Following Sunday, October the 4th, we're having the McCluskeys with us. They come and sing for us every year, usually in October, and they're good friends of ours. We always enjoy them being with us, Pat and Kyla McCluskey. So we'll go back to the 3 services again, and like we did with Brother Al Reichman. So we're looking forward to some events coming up here in the weeks ahead. Well, school's been open here at Concord Christian Academy for now several weeks, and it's going well, and the kids have adapted, and teachers have adapted to the kind of a little bit newer system of doing things, and we do have some openings though. So if you parents out there, or you know of some parents who are struggling with homeschooling your children, give us a call, and certainly if we can help you out and put your kid in our school, we would love to do that. Alrighty, so that's some things that are happening at Concord Baptist and Concord Christian Academy. Good to see Patricia Parker in the service. Hi, Pat. Pat came all the way from Staten Island. And if you go on our Facebook page, you'll see that Pat is the #1 person who puts more comments than anybody else. And that's good. That means she's with us, she's paying attention, she greets everybody. But Pat came down, took me out and my family out today as a pre-birthday little gathering. Thank you for doing that, Pat. That was very, very nice of you. But anyhow, and so if she was in the area, she'd be here all the time. But she lives way up there in New York, and but we're glad that she is here visiting with us here tonight. All right, let's take our Bibles tonight, and we're going to go to Lamentations, chapter 3. Lamentations. We've been doing a series out of the prophets. I saw Brother John last week did Habakkuk, which was a good message, a good reminder to rejoice no matter what is coming into our lives. And truly, Habakkuk would have been a contemporary of Jeremiah. They both were preaching during a time in which Israel was besieged by the Babylonians. As we've talked about this many times before, Israel was split into 2 sections. Israel, the 10 tribes to the north, had already been overtaken by the Assyrians and had become later on the Samaritans. And to the south, Babylon now was invading Judah, and Jeremiah was watching as all this took place. Now, Jeremiah wrote 2 books, of course, Jeremiah, and then he wrote the next little book after that, Lamentations, which is actually written in poetic style. It's one of the poetry books of the Bible, just like Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Job, and Lamentations, all written in poetic fashion. And in fact, what Lamentations is a compilation of 5 funeral songs. You say, what was the funeral? Who died? The nation of Israel, the city of Jerusalem. And he was as though somebody that was given a eulogy during the times in which Babylon had finally come in on their 3rd invasion, 586 BC, and had wiped out Jerusalem, had knocked down Solomon's temple, had taken all the gold and silver and everything out of the temple and all the vessels, and they had knocked down the walls around the city. Of course, the walls were to protect. When you knocked down the walls, that showed that you conquered that city now. And so Jeremiah is known as the weeping prophet, thus Lamentations, lamenting. He's lamenting what's happened to his beloved country and his beloved city and the temple. So he is walking through the streets of Jerusalem now, looking at the rubble, seeing all the devastation by the Babylonian army, and now he's reflecting back on this rich heritage of which Israel had, and now it seems like it's all come to a terrible ending. And so he's writing this book as God has inspired him. And so as he's writing this book, we're going to see some things. We're going to look at Lamentations chapter number 3. In verse number 18, he says, I said, my strength and my hope is perished from the Lord. Remembering my affliction and my misery, the wormwood and the gall, my soul hath them still in remembrance and is humbled in me. This I recall to my mind, therefore have I hope. Therefore have I hope. It is of the Lord's mercy that we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, saith my soul. Therefore will I hope in him. The Lord is good unto them that wait for him, to the soul that seeketh him. It is good that a man should both hope and quietly wait for the salvation of the Lord. Notice the word hope was written 3 times in this passage. Verse number 18, my hope is perished. But then in verse number 21, he says, when I recall to my mind, I have hope. And then he concludes this little section in verse number 26 by saying, it is good that a man should have both hope and quietly wait. And so I want us to look at a message this evening, a Bible study from verse number 21, where Jeremiah says this, therefore have I hope. And that's what the title is, therefore have I hope. There's always hope, no matter what goes wrong, no matter how you've messed up, no matter what God has to do, no matter what the enemy does. There's always hope. And that's what we want to share tonight. Let's pray. Father, thank you tonight for this time to share the Word of God. Thank you for the book of Jeremiah and Lamentations, what tremendous reminders and not only historical facts, but, Lord, spiritual, biblical principles that remind us, Lord, that no matter what happens, we always have hope. Thank you for that. Bless now our teaching in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, Jeremiah, if you remember a number of weeks ago, we started our little mini-series just on Jeremiah. We'll go to one of the other prophets in the next few weeks. But if you remember, Jeremiah was not too excited about being a prophet. When God called him, what did he do? Did he say, yes, wonderful, great, that's what I want to do? No, he said, I can't do it. I can't speak. I'm just a child. You have the wrong guy. God said, no, you're going to do it. I'm going to give you the words. Don't be afraid of the people. And so God called him to be a prophet, not only to Israel, Judah at that time, but then also to the other nations. Well, we see that Jeremiah received a lot of persecution for being a prophet. His message was one of judgment. You know, it's hard for the people to accept that God was going to judge them. They were hoping that God would not judge them. They were hoping that the enemy, the Babylonians, would be defeated. They were hoping that somehow, some way, Jerusalem would not be ransacked, and that the temple would not be destroyed, the walls would not be torn down, and they had hope that everything was going to work out. But Jeremiah kept saying, no, you're going to be taken captive. You're going to go down into Babylon. You're going to live in houses down there. Your kids are going to get married. You're going to have grandkids down there. And for 70 years, you're going to stay in Babylon. But if you remember what the other message we shared a few weeks ago when God told Jeremiah, but I know the thoughts that I have towards you, not of evil, but of good. And he gave Jeremiah hope, and he gave the people hope that it seems pretty bleak now, but listen, there's coming a day when you're going to go back. You'll restore the kingdom again. You'll restore the city again. You'll build the temple again. You'll rebuild the walls. And then by the way, and that's what the books of Ezra and Nehemiah are all about. Rebuilding the walls, rebuilding the temple, going back, reestablishing Jerusalem the way it once was before the Babylonians destroyed it. Now, so Jeremiah was hated. He was persecuted. He was thrown in jail a number of times. He never got married because his life would have been too hard to have a wife and a family. He saw the destruction of Jerusalem, He saw the destruction of the temple. He's weeping now in the book of Lamentations as he's walking about, looking at all the destruction. Now, he describes his lament in chapter number 3. We're going to look at some of the points or some of the things that he says that he was lamenting over, he was weeping over. We start in verse number 1 of Lamentations chapter 3. He said, I am the man that have seen affliction by the rod of his wrath. Now, notice he says, I'm the man that has seen this, but God was not punishing Jeremiah, was he? Who was God punishing? Israel, Judah. The people, the ones who rejected his message, the ones who would not repent, the ones who kept ignoring the message of not only Jeremiah, but many prophets before him. And so when he talks about, I'm the man that has seen affliction by the rod of the Lord, not only is he saying, I've seen it, but what my people have seen it. And so he's looking and saying, the nation, this is what our nation has experienced. Notice how he describes the grief and the torment that his nation has gone through. He said, I've been seeing the affliction by the rod of his wrath. Well, whose wrath is it? Ultimately, it's God's wrath, is it not? Yes, the king Nebuchadnezzar sent his armies in, and yes, Babylon overtook them, but it was ordained of God. Remember, God's in control of all nations. And he can do as he will with the king's heart, as the word of God tells us. Now he says, he had led me in verse number 2. And brought me into darkness, but not unto his light. They appear that they are living in darkness. There's no hope. In verse number 3, surely against me is he turned. He turneth his hand against me all the day. God's not for us anymore. He's turned away from us. He's turned his hand against us. And so he's lamenting. Verse number 4, my flesh and my skin hath been made old. He hath broken my bones. I'm sure Jeremiah aged during this process. You know, whenever someone is going through turmoil and stress, many times they age. And I know some of you that are older, you're saying, yeah, I know I've been through a lot of stress. Well, you're just old. But people, as sometimes prematurely age because of all the torment and torture and issues of life that they've been through. And that's what he's saying. He said, my flesh, my skin hath made me old. He's broken down my bones. I feel like I'm physically I'm broken as a person. And the nation felt physically broken. In verse number 5, he says, he hath builded against me, and compassed me with gall and travail. Once again, he's talking that he has besieged me, and he's given me gall, which is a bitter drink. Isn't that what they gave Jesus when he's on the cross? So this is what he described. In essence, he feels almost probably like what Jesus, when he felt on the cross. He continues, verse 6, he has set me in dark places, as they that be dead of old. Well, what's a dark place? A tomb. Where do the dead reside? He says, I feel like I'm in a grave. Now, once again, he's describing not only his own personal, just ideas and his personal feelings, but he's portraying what the whole nation felt like at this time. He continues in verse number 7, he hath hedged me about that I cannot get out. He hath made my chain heavy. Notice it's like I'm in prison. I can't get out. I feel terrible. I feel like there's a ball and chain connected to me. Verse number 8, also when I cry and shout, he shutteth out my prayer. Did God not hear the prayer of Jeremiah? Well, certainly he did. But did he hear the cries of the people, the sinful people? No, it was too late. Maybe when the Babylonian army was coming in, now they're crying, oh Lord, have mercy on me. But it was too late. Their prayers could not be answered. They should have been praying that years ago. As he continues, in verse number 11, he says, he hath turned aside my ways and pulled me in pieces. He hath made me desolate. Notice he describes those, he's been pulled apart. This is how physically and emotionally distraught he is. Verse 12, he hath bent me low. He has bent his bow and set me as a mark for the arrow. In essence, he says, I feel like a target. The target practice, we got shot, bow, and arrow. He's describing his torments. In verse number 14, I was a derision to all my people in their song all the day. In essence, I was made fun of. I was mocked. And Jeremiah was mocked. Nobody wanted to hear him. They laughed at him. They mocked at what he said. Finally, and as he continues, and he says, he's filled me with bitterness in verse 15. He hath made me drunken with wormwood. He has broken my teeth with gravel stones. He has covered me with ashes. Thou hast, verse 17, thou hast removed my soul far out from peace. I forgot prosperity. And I said, my strength and my hope is perished from the Lord. Now, did Jeremiah say that I don't have any more hope? Well, maybe he felt that way. Definitely the people felt that way. You know, when your hope is gone, it's a terrible thing. The Proverbs tells us that the hope deferreth maketh the heart sick. That means that when you don't have hope, you have a discouragement, a depression. You have an anguish in your soul because it's hope that gives you a little bit of joy. It's hope that gives you a little bit of excitement in life, to think that there is a hope. By the way, doesn't the Bible talk about that we are to look for the blessed hope? What is that blessed hope? The second coming of Jesus. Is that not our hope? What do we have? A hope called heaven. Is that not our hope after we died? Just think if we didn't have that hope. Think about all the people who are not saved. They have no hope. They live this life. They're going to die. They don't even know what's going to happen to them after they die. That's why I've done many funerals, and when I do a Christian funeral, it's a blessed time. Yes, the people are sad, but there's a peace, there's a joy because they know their loved ones in heaven. But I've done funerals of people that we don't know that if they were saved even. Sometimes a family from the outside will just ask me to come and do a funeral. And there's weeping and wailing, and it's just a whole different type of atmosphere because, you know why? They have no hope. They have no hope. Hope is very important. The Word of God talks about our faith, our hope, love. Our hope. Our hope is what keeps us praying. Our hope is what keeps us reading the Bible. Our hope is what keeps us witnessing and sharing the gospel. Our hope is what keeps us doing what we do as Christians because we have a hope. We have hope. And people that have no hope, they don't go to church anymore. What's the use? People that have no hope, they don't read the Bible anymore. What's the use? They don't pray anymore. What's the use? And when someone has no hope, their life has no meaning. Their life has no joy. Their life has no peace. Their life has no purpose. And so here's what Jeremiah is saying. He's saying that I feel like I have no hope. Is anything ever going to get better in Israel? We've just lost our city. The 10 northern tribes have been taken away 100 years ago. Jerusalem now is done. Our people have been taken to work for the Babylonians. The old people, the sick people, the worthless people that the Babylonians looked at and said, they have no value in our country. They're left behind. Do we have any hope? Will we ever see Jerusalem built back again? Will we ever walk these streets again? And go to the temple again and sacrifice again and sing the songs of Zion again. Will we ever do the things that we once had? And he says, I don't have any hope. You know, we're going through a pandemic. We had no idea how long it was going to take. We're in month, 5, 6 now? Seems like an eternity. It's only been like half a year. You know, some pandemics, they've lasted up to 2-3 years. Back in the Spanish flu, back in, 100 years ago, almost 3 years. That's pretty depressing, isn't it? But can you imagine wearing these stupid masks for 3 years? I'm almost getting used to them. Now I find myself like going to leave the store and I keep my mask on. I'm driving. I'm like, take this dumb mask off. You're in your car by yourself. I see people driving around with masks on, like nobody else in the car. Who are you going to get the virus from? Who are you giving it to? Relax. Take the mask off. You come to church, put it on. Leave church, go in your car, take it off. But anyhow, but you know what we all have? We all have hope that it's going to be okay someday, don't we? We have hope. It's going to work out. There's going to be some medical breakthrough. There's going to be a vaccine. There's going to be antibodies. We might go through this another year, but at least we have hope that maybe life will resume to some sort of normalcy again. I have hope that people are going to come back to church. I have hope that, they're not going to be afraid. They're going to sit home the rest of their life watching me on the internet. They probably, you know what, I kind of like this. Pop some popcorn, lay in bed, watch a preacher. It's good life. It gets a little boring, I turn the channel, go to something else. I know what some of you do on Facebook. You log in the first minute, you watch about a minute, you like it, and then you're off, you're done. I'm going to track you. I'm going to find out who's really watching. Anyhow, God bless you for whatever you do. But we have a hope it's going to be ended someday, right? And Jeremiah is standing there, and it's almost like he has no hope, and the people have no hope. But then something happens. Verse number 21, he says, or verse 19, remembering my affliction and my misery, the wormwood and the gall, my soul hath then still in remembrance is humbled in me. He said, I started to think back. I know it looks bad now, but I'm remembering good days in the past. And look what he says here. My soul hath them still in remembrance and is humbled in me. This I recall to my mind, therefore have I hope. He said, you know what? I remembered some things. Just when I felt like I was hopeless, God reminded me of who he is. And now I have hope. Well, what brought him hope? Let's look at several things here tonight. What's the first thing that he brought him hope? Look at verse number 22. It is of the Lord's mercy that we are not consumed. It is of the Lord's mercy that we are not consumed. What's the first hope he had? God is merciful. He was reminded, oh yes, I serve a merciful God. Do you know what mercy is? Mercy is when you're guilty of something and you don't receive the punishment you should receive and you're let free. That's mercy. When somebody who's convicted of a crime and he throws himself at the mercy of the judge. What's he saying? I deserve punishment, but please cut me a break. Well, God is a merciful God. He cuts us a break. And notice what it says here in verse 22. It is of the Lord's mercy that we are not consumed. Could God have destroyed all the Israelites? Sure. Don't you think there are probably some nations that the Babylonians completely wiped out? He said we could have been consumed, but we were not. We were taken captive. And as we mentioned before in a previous lesson, the captivity was not that bad. They went to Babylon. They were not mistreated. They were not slaves like they were in Egypt. They were allowed to live in homes. They were allowed to have families. They integrated into the society. Daniel made out pretty good. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego made out pretty good. You see, they used them they in their government, those men at least, but they used the people, and so it was not a bad thing. And so God was merciful, because God is a merciful God. You notice he says here that we were not consumed. Do you understand that all of us, if we didn't have the mercy of God, as sinners, we would die someday and go to hell? Now that's a frightening thought, to think the possibility of going to hell, is it not? Sometimes when we share the gospel, we tell people that if you're not saved, you go to hell. And I hear the criticism, you're trying to scare people into heaven. Yeah? Yeah, because, it's a fearful thing to fall into the hands of an angry God. It's a fearful thing to be cast into hell, a place of darkness, weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth. And yes, I share the gospel with people because I don't want them to die and go to hell. I have loved ones that I'm concerned about. I have friends that I'm concerned about. I have neighbors I'm concerned about. I don't want to see those people die and go to hell. So I share with them the gospel. The gospel is that God is merciful. We're sinners and we deserve punishment, but he sent Jesus to die for us on the cross and rise again and provide salvation. And if we look to the Lamb of God and have our sins forgiven, God is a merciful God. And instead of condemning us, he forgives us. Instead of casting us into hell, he builds us a mansion in heaven. Instead of tormenting us for all eternity, he gives us an eternal bliss in him. Instead of taking away everything, even a drop of water like the rich man that died and went to hell, he gives us treasures and inheritance in his kingdom. If you're going to heaven, it's because of the mercy of God. Not by our righteousness, but by his mercy. He saved us. Titus 3 talks about that. That's why people that think they're good enough to go to heaven, you know what? You're negating the mercy of God. If you say, I'm good enough, I'm going to go to heaven, what you're saying is, I don't need God's mercy, I'm just going to make it on my own. You're foolish. You don't know what the Bible says. I thought that for many years. I'll be a good person, maybe God will take me to heaven. I didn't realize I had to come to the mercy seat and find forgiveness. I had to come to the cross, and it was there where I found mercy. I didn't find mercy in what I could do, I found mercy in what he did for me on the cross. God is a merciful God. His mercy forgives us. His mercy takes away our sins. His mercy makes us a child of his. His mercy denies us of what we really deserve, punishment, for the wages of sin is death. And you know what the wonderful thing about it is? Not only does he give us mercy at salvation, but the great Psalm 23, the last verse says this, surely goodness and mercy shall what? Follow me all the days of my life. I like the preacher had 2 dogs. He named them Goodness and Mercy. Yeah, I had to remember the verse because they followed him every day. Anyhow, but God said every day your goodness is following you. Every day mercy is following you. You ever wonder if someone's following you? Yeah, goodness and mercy are following you every day. You know what? If someone's going to follow me or someone's going to follow me, I like that. And so every day his mercies follow me. His goodness follows me. And so instead of punishment, he provides mercy. Why was that important for the children of Israel? Because they thought that we're serving a God that has no mercy. But to the contrary, he was a merciful God. He did not give them what they deserved. You know what they deserved? They all deserved to die. They all deserved to be destroyed. Yes, there was Jeremiah and a handful of a remnant that were spiritual, but by and large, most people were not spiritual. Most people were idol worshipers and disregarded the law. And so his mercy was good. 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 9 says this. Should be on the screen here. He is long-suffering to us, we're not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. God's merciful. He doesn't want anybody to die and go to hell. Do you understand that? That's why, I get a little frustrated, to be honest, when I hear these hyper-Calvinists teaching and talking about how that, I've been ordained and chosen in God. He elected me, and but all the other people are not elected. They're going to die and go to hell. It's as though, God took great pleasure in picking out a few people and letting everybody else die and go to hell. Nothing could be further from the truth. God loves everybody. If anybody dies and goes to hell, you think God is glad about that? Do you think he chose that for them? You think God chose, he made somebody just to cast them into hell? What kind of God is that? Yeah, it's not the God we serve. We serve a merciful God. And he's not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. Does that mean everybody comes to repentance? No. Jesus said the road to heaven is straight and narrow, and few find it. But the road that leads to destruction is broad and wide, and many go down the wrong path. Breaks the heart of God to see many depart from him. He takes no pleasure in the punishment of the wicked, Ezekiel tells us. And so he's a merciful God. Was he merciful to Israel? Over and over again. He provided mercy for them. They went through the wilderness, the Red Sea, manna's coming down every day. Moses is up receiving the Ten Commandments. And what are they doing? Oh, they're building a golden calf and stripping naked and dancing around a golden calf. Oh, that's a real spiritual people, is it not? Now, God could have wiped them out then, but he didn't. They complained all the time. Oh, we don't like Moses. We don't like manna. We don't like this. We don't like that. Let's go back to Egypt. In fact, there were times in which God and Moses had this little conversation, and God says, look, let me just wipe this people out and get a new nation. Now, here's why I said Moses was a much greater man than I, because I would have taken God up on that one. But he said, no, Lord, what's the Egyptians going to say? What are the people in the other nations going to say? You already promised them. Now, God didn't need to be talked out of it, but I think you see the frustration of God. Like, what's wrong with these people? Wicked nations. Was God just going to let wicked nations die and perish without mercy? Or would he provide mercy for the wicked nations? We look at one of the great Bible stories, one of the Old Testament prophets by the name of Jonah. And did not Jonah, was he not commissioned to go to the most wicked city of that day? Nineveh, capital of the Assyrians, ones that took over the northern kingdom, to preach and present to them an opportunity to be saved. And, Jonah had a struggle with that because he didn't have mercy. And he knew God was a merciful God, and God forgave that people, and he allowed those people not to be destroyed. When God called down Sodom and Gomorrah and said, I'm going to destroy these two cities, Abraham said, Lord, if there's 50, would you destroy the cities for 50? God said, no, for 50 I want 45, not 40, 35, 30, 25, 20. How about 10? 10 people. You find 10 people, I won't destroy. That's the mercy of God, is it not? Could they find 10 people? No. So don't say that God doesn't give people a chance. Anybody that dies and goes out, they can't say, oh, God never gave me a chance. Do you understand that there are so many times which people have some light to follow? They hear the gospel. They many times turn a deaf ear to the gospel. You say, how about all these people that grow up like in these religions that are not Christian religions? You know what? They all have some light. It's just a matter, are you going to follow that light? I was stuck in a religion that was not pointing me to Christ, but I was seeking light. Because I sought light, I found the answer finally. And so, God is merciful. In Psalm 103, verse 8, the Lord is merciful, gracious, slow to anger, plenteous in mercy. Jesus later on said in Matthew 5:17, blessed are the merciful. If God is merciful, do you think you and I should be merciful also? If God could grant mercy to others, do you think we could grant mercy to people in our lives likewise? And so he feels like he has no hope. Then he says, oh yes, I remember. God is merciful. Second thing he remembers. God is compassionate. God is compassionate. Look at verse number 22 again. It is of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed, because his compassions, they fail not. This goes along with the great song, Great is thy faithfulness. Thy compassions, they fail not. That means that God is always compassionate. There's never a time where he is not compassionate. They fail not. To have compassion simply means you feel people's heart, their burdens, what they're going through. You understand. Do you know Jesus is a compassionate high priest? He knows what it's like to be tempted in every area like we are. The only difference between Jesus and us is we fall to temptation. Jesus did not. He's a sympathetic high priest. He knows what it's like to be rejected. He knows what it's like to be hated. He knows what it's like to be lied about. He knows what it's like to have people curse him and want him to die. You see, we serve a God who knows what we're going through because he is a compassionate God. And so God feels for us. Did not Jesus weep? Is that not a heart of compassion? He sees the the tomb of Lazarus. Lazarus is already dead. He'd been called 4 days earlier, but he took his time because he had a better miracle than just healing somebody from sickness. Mary and Martha both approach, and Martha first and Mary later. They said, if only you'd been here, our brother would not have died. When Mary, the second of the two sisters, came and said, if only you'd been here, Jesus cried. Easy verse to remember, John 11:35. Jesus wept. Did he know he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead? Yeah, why did he cry? Because he saw two women crying. Have you ever been touched by somebody else's tears? Remember when Hezekiah was told that he had a death sentence, and Hezekiah started to cry? And all of a sudden God said, all right, go tell him he'll be all right. We'll give him 15 more years. To understand that God is moved by our tears and he's a compassionate God. He's not somebody in heaven that just looks and says, I don't care. Yeah, it doesn't matter. And so when Jesus looked out over the city of Jerusalem, he cried. He cried. He said that they're like scattered sheep. I was like the mother hen trying to gather all my little baby chickens together under my wings, but they would not. They would not follow me. They would not listen to me. They rejected me. And Jesus had a heart of compassion. He cried. When Jesus predicted that Jerusalem back in 70 AD, this was 40 years before that time, that Jerusalem would be destroyed and nothing would be left of it. He cried over the fact that was going to happen to Jerusalem. And so Psalm 56:8 talks about our tears. He says, put thou my tears into thy bottle. Are they not in thy book? God remembers our tears. God sees our tears. God is a compassionate God. And so those days when you wept, and you prayed, and you wept, God saw every tear. He put them in a bottle. I don't know how he collects them all up. Those days when you had great anguish and heartbreak and you were grieved and you felt like nobody else was there. Do you understand God is compassionate? He feels how you feel. Think about this. When we hear of someone dying, many times it brings grief to our soul. Now, if the person's saved, they're rejoicing in heaven. God kind of sees both sides. He sees the great rejoicing in heaven, but then he sees the weeping here on earth. When Jesus talked about he was going to be leaving, he said that another would come and take his spot. What was that other one called? The Comforter. The Holy Spirit. The Comforter. He said, when I leave, just like I comforted you, I'm going to send another Comforter, the Holy Spirit. And if you're saved, guess who's inside you? The Comforter. That's why when you go through things in life, and you go through heartbreak and sorrow and grief, somehow you pull yourself together and you're okay. Do you know why? Because you have the Comforter. You didn't even know. You thought you were strong. No, we're not strong, but the Holy Spirit is our Comforter. And so God is a compassionate God. Now he calls us to be compassionate also, because in Jude he says, and some having compassion, making a difference. We can make a difference in people's lives by simply having compassion. Compassion. Does it bother you that people are going to die and go to hell, or do you not care at all? Do you have any compassion? Does it bother you when people run away from God, or do you have compassion on them? Does it bother you when you look out into our country and we see our country many times going in the wrong direction, and it seems like with every generation we get more messed up? It seems like right is wrong and wrong is right, and people that should not be glorified are being glorified. I don't understand it sometimes. Everything has to be politically correct. You can't offend anybody. Everything. Could we just get back to the Bible? Could we just follow God? Oh no, we can't do that. Separation of church and state. Can't do that, can't we? Now we can honor and do everything else. We can't get back to the Bible. We're messed up. When I look at our country, it breaks my heart to sometimes to think, what's our next couple generations going to have? When I'm dead and gone, what are my grandkids and great-grandkids going to have for a country? You know, and you know, it's compassion. So what do we do now? Well, we try to live right, do right, witness, win people to Jesus, set the example, do what we can to kind of, you know, stave off all the things that we see. The third thing that God says, and he reminds them of, he says, you know, I thought I had no hope. But then I remember, oh yeah, that's right. God is merciful. God's compassions fail not. In fact, in verse 23 it says, they are new every morning. Isn't that good every morning? He feels bad for us. He has compassion. Because you know what? After about a couple of weeks of, you know, putting up with people, it's hard to have compassion for them, isn't it? But every morning, his compassions are new. Lord, thank you. Every day, you're a good God, a compassionate God towards us. He's a merciful God. But the third thing he says, look at the rest of the verse. Great is thy faithfulness. I love that verse. Great is thy faithfulness. I love the song, Great is thy faithfulness. We probably should have sang that one tonight, huh? Great is thy faithfulness. Faithful. Well, what's the root word for faithfulness? Faith, right? What makes us permanent and secure and reliable? It's our faith. And so, because we have a faith, we show up to church, we read the Word, we pray. We are faithful because of our faith. Well, who's the author and finisher of our faith? The Lord Jesus Christ. Who has given us the faith that we have? It's God. And so he, who is the center of faith, is secure and he is faithful. You see, somebody who's fickle is not faithful. Somebody who's not dependable is not faithful. Somebody that you can't trust is not faithful. When somebody is interviewing for a job and they go and they look at their previous employment and they say, you missed 200 days last year. And, this one day I was sick. And the next day I had to take my wife to the doctors. And guess what? You weren't faithful. Do you want to hire that person to work for you so that next year you can wonder where he's at 200 days out of the year? Faithful. Faithful means you show up. Faithful means you can count on him. God is a faithful God. That means that when he tells me to pray, he's going to answer. He's faithful. When he tells me he's going to save me if I trust Jesus, he's faithful. It's good. It's permanent. It's secure. What's he faithful? A couple things under this. Number one, he's faithful to save us. If you call unto Jesus, the Lord Jesus Christ, as your Savior, he's faithful to save you. He'll never turn you down. Secondly, he's faithful to forgive. 1 John chapter 1 verse 9 says this, if we confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. The only reason that we are not forgiven of our sins as believers is because we didn't ask it. Because it says, if we confess our sins, what is he? Faithful and just to forgive us our sins. You say, but I keep committing the same sins over and over again. Was it not Jesus that told us to forgive 7 times? Or 70 times 7. Now, if we could wrong somebody 490 times, which I doubt that anybody's wronged somebody 490 times, could not God forgive us over and over and over again? Great is his faith. That doesn't give a license to sin. It's just saying that we serve a God who is faithful. Thirdly, under that, he's faithful to provide our needs. Every day in the wilderness, the people of Israel could count on one thing. Manna was going to fall. They didn't have to wonder, is it going to come today? Is God asleep? Did he run out of manna? Did he not go to the store? Every day the manna would fall. When they needed water, there was no water in the area, but you know what? They always found water because God's faithful. When they went up against enemies, even though they were outnumbered, they always won. You know why? Because God is faithful. God is faithful. He's faithful to provide our needs. Philippians 4:19, but my God shall supply all your need according to his riches and glory by Christ Jesus. Matthew 6:33, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. God is faithful. Do you know, when God gave them 40 years of manna, do you know that even the shoes on their feet lasted 40 years? Now, I don't know about you. If I have a number of pair of shoes. I probably have more shoes than any man needs to have. But anyhow, I find deals and bargains. I just can't help myself. But anyhow, I don't think I've had a pair of shoes over 40 years. In fact, I know I don't have a pair of shoes 40 years. And I know this, that God was faithful to somehow every day keep those shoes from not wearing out. So that in 40 years, kids grew, shoes grew with them. 40 years, God's faithful. He's also faithful to protect us. Psalm 23, verse 4, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. And then he's faithful to keep his promises. His yeas are yeas, his nays are nays. He's faithful. I was riding in the car the other day, and I heard a song about the faithfulness of God. It just touched my heart as I start thinking about, Lord, you've always been so faithful. Now, we've not always been faithful to God, but he's always faithful to us. He just always shows up. He's just always there for us. He never lets us down. He's faithful. He's faithful. And so, I go to a God that's faithful. Now, how did this help the Israelites? Because they're probably looking and saying, God's not going to take care of us. No, God's faithful. We're going to be taken in captivity, and our city was burned, and the temple was burned. God's faithful. The temple will come back again. God's faithful. Through the prophets, God said that the Son of God would come. The one who would be born of a virgin, as Isaiah saw. The one who would be called the Prince of Peace, the mighty God, the everlasting Father. Who was that one? Jesus. Was God faithful to bring his Son to the earth? Yes. Was he faithful to put him on a cross? Was he faithful to raise him from the dead? Was he faithful to send him back to heaven? The same God that did all that, the same God is faithful. He'll send him back to the earth again. And he will conquer the nations, and he will set up his kingdom. Because God is faithful. Great is thy faithfulness. Notice the next thing in verse 24. The Lord is my portion. That's interesting. The Lord is my portion. Well, what do you normally get a portion of? You sit down at dinner and you get your portion of food, right? When the Israelites were going into the promised land, every tribe got a portion of land, a section of land. But there was one tribe that did not receive a specific plot of the land, but they were actually able to live in certain cities, and those were the Levites. Because God said that I am your portion. Meaning that it is better for you to serve me. You get me instead of a piece of property. You get to sacrifice. You get to go to the temple. You get to worship like nobody else did. I am your portion. And this is what Jeremiah is saying. He's saying the Lord is my portion, meaning that I belong to him and he belongs to me. I am his portion. We sing the song, Now I Belong to Jesus. Jesus belongs to me. He's my portion. I have an inheritance in heaven, a mansion. Everything is waiting for me. He's my portion. The last thing we share with you tonight is this. He sums it up by saying this. The Lord is my portion, saith my soul. Therefore will I hope in him. Once again, what are we talking about? Hope. Hope. Where it seems like there's no hope. And then verse number 26, or verse 25. The Lord is good unto them that wait for him, to the soul that seeketh him. Last thing he says is the Lord, God is good. God is good. He's just good. There are times which people don't think God's good, but he's good. There's times which the people think that God is forsaken, but he's good. God, the Lord is good unto them that wait for him. Now, what's the key? Sometimes we don't wait on God. We pray, we don't get an answer. God's not good. No, you didn't wait. You're in trouble. Oh, no, I don't find an answer. God's not good. No, you didn't wait on God. And sometimes because we're impatient, and at times we are quick to do things our way, we don't wait on God, and therefore our conclusion is God's not good. How many times did you get in financial problems because you said, God didn't give me this, God didn't give me that, and I'll just, I'll figure it out on my own. And you got yourself in financial problems. How many people ended up marrying the wrong person? They should maybe marry an unsaved person or somebody that's not spiritual because they couldn't wait on God's purpose and God's plan for their life. And instead of saying God's good, they didn't wait on God. How many times have people take a job or not go into ministry or make a bad decision simply because they didn't learn to wait on God and they thought, God's not there. No, God's good. You just didn't wait. Israel, will you get to go back to the land? Yes, but you're going to have to wait 70 years. Will the temple be rebuilt? Yes, but you're going to have to learn how to wait. Will we be restored back to a nation again? Yes, but you're going to have to learn how to wait. God's good, but you have to wait. And so, the Lord is good. The Lord is good unto them that wait for him, to the soul that seeketh him. Notice that not only do you wait on God, but you seek him. And the more you seek him, you'll come to the same conclusion that Jeremiah did. God is a good God. When I don't understand his ways, it doesn't matter. The Lord's still good. When I don't agree with what God does, it doesn't matter if I agree with him or not. The Lord is still good. And it's not up to us to judge God all the time and evaluate God and decide whether he's good or not. He's good. We're the ones that have the problems. He's good. Romans 8:28, for we know. We don't think, but we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them that are called according to his purpose. And so what's the bottom line? Verse 26, it's good that a man should both hope and quietly wait for the salvation of the Lord. And so Jeremiah, I know you're sad. I know you saw your city ransacked. You saw your city besieged and razed. You saw the temple knocked down. You saw them take the beautiful vessels out of the temple back to heathen country. You saw them take all the people that were of any value to the Babylonians. You saw them deported. And you're sitting there and you're walking through the streets weeping. And your heart is broken. And when you felt like there was no hope, all of a sudden God spoke to you, didn't he, Jeremiah? And he said, you know what? There is hope. There's hope. You know why there's hope? Because God is merciful, because God's compassionate, because God's faithful, because you are God's portion and he is your portion, and God is always good. And if you'll focus on these things, you know what? You will always have hope and never have despair. So as we conclude our little Bible study tonight, I hope that you'll go over these verses again and realize what a good God we truly do serve. Let's pray. Father, thank you tonight for this time to share your word. Bless now the teachings that were presented to our people tonight. Help us to realize and understand the hope that we have that's in you. Thank you, Lord, for your mercy, your compassion, your faithfulness, that we are your portion, you are our portion. Thank you, Lord, that you're a good God. We praise you for these things. Now bless teaching, preaching of your word, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, thank you for being here tonight. We're going to go to prayer with our folks that are in the auditorium. We're going to say goodbye to those who have watched our service online.